Hi again, everyone. Welcome to the National Federations of Families webinar, Connecting with Families Experiencing Challenges Through Coaching. I'm Lachelle Freeman, and I'm project manager here. And we are excited to have Joey and Edie here today. They can give a further introduction to themselves, but Joey is a consultant at the National Empowerment Center, and Edie is the owner of Polaris Coaching and Consulting. So we are so happy to hear them today. Before we get started, and we're going to get started immediately, I just want to talk a little bit about what we do in terms of using family-centered language. And I just breeze past that slide. Okay, so NASDAQ and the National Federation of Families, we use trauma-responsive language, strength-based language, avoid blaming caregivers. We are community-based, person first. And I have my bar in front of me. Gina, do you mind just saying those last three categories that we use for family-driven language?
Sure. So after what Lachelle just said, I'm just going to repeat the last one. Person first. We're respectful of everybody's opinion and what you contribute to the event, and non-judgmental and always consistent with our actions.
Perfect. Thank you so much for jumping in there for me, Gina. So I'm going to turn it over to Edie and Joey to get started with this great webinar.
Thank you so much, Lachelle, and everybody on the NFF team here with us today. Thank you all for joining us. My name is Joey Archangel. I use she, her pronouns. And again, this is Connecting with Families Experiencing Challenges Through Coaching. And I, Joey, am from Long Beach, California. I'm currently at Long Beach, California. And I want to honor the land that we currently occupy, the Gabrielino Tongva Nation. I would really love to recognize the resilience of its original stewards. And just grateful to be here with you all today. Thank you for attending. We hope that what we share will resonate with you. So you might be coming here because you work with families, or you might be one of those family members. I myself am both. I am a person with lived experience of mental health challenges, gone through different systems, and I also currently work within the mental health systems, previously for nonprofits and currently more as a consultant. And one of my hats that I wear is also being a business coach. With that being said, I'd love some time for Edie to introduce herself.
Thank you, Joey. Hello, everyone. My name is Edie Pasicel, and I use she, pronouns. I am also from the Tongva lands, aka Long Beach, California. And everything Joey says, I really resonate with. I also have mental health challenges, and I have been in the nonprofit sector for a decade. I left in 2023 in November. I started a year-long coaching program in January of 2024, finished that in 2025, and went on to get my ICF credential in March of 2025. So that's a little bit about my background. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Edie. And then a brief overview of today's webinar. We're going to go through some coaching basics, and then we'll go through the 8 dimensions of wellness. And finally, we'll look at how the internal family systems, or IFS, can support us, especially through the idea of self with a capital S, energy. So let's go ahead and get started with the next slide. Thank you.
Muted. I'm going to stop muting myself. And I'm looking at 2 screens, so I hope I don't confuse anyone. But yes, thank you everyone who has already put in where they're coming in from. I saw Montana, Pennsylvania in the house, Arizona, and a ton of other places. We're so glad that you're here. And so, yeah, you can continue if you didn't get a chance to put your name and where you're joining us from. Please go ahead and continue to put that in the chat. As you're doing that, We just want to highlight that everything in this webinar is an invitation. Please take what feels supportive and leave the rest behind. We'll be exploring some rich material, and you'll have the full choice of how deeply you want to engage and at what pace.
Thank you. And just really briefly, if there's anything that would help you or the parts of you that are showing up feel more grounded in this space, feel free to grab that, whether it's a drink of water or just maybe you want to take a quick. I invite you to do that now, and we can move on to the next slide.
Yeah. Right. So, I'll start by kind of talking about coaching before we get too much into the slide. So in coaching, there are many skills we can learn and draw from, but for today, I want to focus on 3 essentials that really support a strong coaching presence. And so the first being deep listening. This means tuning in to not only the words being spoken, but also the meaning and emotions underneath them. And when we listen at this level, people feel truly heard, and that creates trust and safety and momentum for moving forward. The second is asking open, curious questions. So these kinds of questions invite exploration. They help clients gain clarity about their goals, their choices, and the possibilities available to them. The third is reflecting strengths. This is rooted in one of the core principles of coaching, the belief that every client is already whole and resourceful. So by reflecting strengths, we hold up a mirror so clients can recognize what's already within them and step forward with greater confidence. And when you bring these 3 skills together, the deep listening, the curious questions, and reflecting strengths, you create a coaching process that's centered on growth and clarity and goals, while always grounded in the client's own wisdom. And honestly, if all we ever practice were these 3 skills consistently, we would already be showing up in a very powerful way. So I would be remiss if I didn't share how the International Coaching Federation, ICF for short, defines coaching. And the ICF is the largest professional body that sets standards for coaching worldwide. They define coaching as partnering with clients in a thought-provoking and creative process that inspires them to maximize their personal and professional potential. So I'm going to hand it over to Joey to unpack some of that.
Thank you, Edie. What I just wanted to share was that I also have had the privilege and honor to have been on the other side where I received coaching. So I wanted to share that through this webinar. You'll have 2 presenters who have both been a coach and, again, have had that experience of that getting to know those parts of ourselves and through coaching. Go ahead. We can go ahead, Edie, if you want to add more, or we can go to the next slide.
Oh, sure. Okay, so next slide. The what it isn't. Okay. Okay, so it's really important that we clarify what coaching is not. This will help us stay clear about our role when supporting folks we're working with, and ensures we approach conversations from a place of partnership and not authority. So what it's not. Coaching is not therapy. Therapy is designed to diagnose and treat mental health conditions, often with a focus on healing past wounds. Coaching, on the other hand, they're not trained to provide any clinical support. And instead, and just to reiterate, coaching focuses on exploring goals, growth, and clarity in the client's life. and partnering with them to discover solutions that already exist within them. So coaching is also not consulting. Consultants typically provide advice, solutions, or step-by-step instructions. Coaching is very different. We do not advise or tell clients what to do. So instead, we're creating a space where clients can assess their own wisdom, generate options, and make choices that feel right for them. And third but not least, coaching is not training or teaching. When we teach or train, the goal is to transfer knowledge or skills. Coaching is different. So in coaching, we honor that true wisdom comes from within, and our role is to help others uncover it for themselves. So we do this by asking powerful questions, listening deeply, and reflecting back what we notice. And here's the really exciting part. You don't have to be a professional coach to use these skills. Listening deeply, asking powerful questions, and reflecting strengths back are ways of showing up that can strengthen any relationship, whether you're supporting a family, mentoring a colleague, or even checking in with yourself. These skills shift conversations from giving advice or fixing to creating space for discovery and empowerment. And when you practice them, you'll notice people feel more seen, heard, and capable. So we can go ahead and move over to the next slide. And I'll hand it over to Joey.
Thank you so much, Eden. So we'll be going over the 8 dimensions of wellness, and now that we have a better sense of what coaching is and what it isn't. So one way to bring coaching skills into meaningful conversations is by using a holistic framework with the 8 dimensions of wellness. And this helps us see the full picture of a person's life rather than focusing on just one area. And that client or that person you're working with, they can see the areas where they want to grow, maybe what their priorities are and what their current challenges and barriers are, and figure out a way together through that collaborative coaching experience, a way to be more resourced and integrated. So when I received coaching, I had something called a life wheel, and coaches often use that. And it's a way to map out different areas of your life. And for today, we're going to be using the 8 dimensions of wellness, a pretty known framework for those of you in the mental health field. And it's useful because it does remind us that each of the wellness dimensions are connected, and they can influence one another. And we can't fully support growth in one area without understanding its connection to the rest of the person. So go ahead and we'll do on the next slide so we can share you what they are. And the next slides will go over each one of them more in depth. So don't worry, we'll get a chance to do that. And you will get a copy of these slides later on. This really excited me over, I will say 12 years ago. I was very pregnant with my son. And it really helped me map out this idea of wellness that, I don't just have to worry about my financial, it's really connected to how I'm feeling and how my physical body, how it's affecting it. And so having this, it's like having a menu. I've also worked with clients or members, consumers, psychiatric survivors, however you define yourself or however that group. I myself am a psychiatric survivor, former consumer of mental health services. And what this did for me as an individual meant, again, it was like having a menu to figure out areas of my strengths, areas for growth, and maybe figure out where I might not be in balance or where I'm out of balance. So using this in the coaching, through the coaching lens, makes the conversations more clear and more actionable. And then having my child, who also has a disability, this framework really helps me figure out priorities as well. So this really also supports curiosity and self-discovery rather than imposing solutions to whoever you're working with or even for yourself. They can reflect on what matters most to them, and even notice patterns in their lives, and that way they can define their own priorities. Okay, we'll go ahead and move on to the next slide. and explore um, more of what each of these dimensions are. So each of these, when we combine them, sorry, I'm having trouble seeing a little. When we combine these dimensions with core coaching skills, we can create space for more deeper and powerful conversations. So we're going to be going over what that might look like in each dimension. So for emotional, we're going to be recognizing, expressing, managing feelings more effectively, coping with life's challenges. And that might look like I feel able to express my emotions in a healthy way. I have strategies for managing stress when it arises. I seek support when I'm feeling overwhelmed. I am kind to myself during hard times. So as we go over each one of this, just maybe notice, we invite you to notice if something comes up for you. Maybe that piques your curiosity, or maybe you feel something within your body that feels unsettling. So we just invite you not to judge, but to notice what comes up for you. And for physical, that could look like caring for your body through physical activity, nutrition, sleep, and routine medical care. And that might look like I move my body regularly in a way that feels good. I nourish myself with food that supports my energy. I get enough rest and sleep most nights. I attend regular medical or preventative health checkups. And for social wellness, that could look like building healthy, supportive relationships and a sense of belonging. Things to consider are I might feel connected to people who care about me. I have at least one person I can talk to about personal things. I feel part of a community or group. I engage in relationships that are mutual and respectful. And for spiritual, feeling purpose, meaning, and alignment with your values and beliefs. I make time for practices that nourish my spirit. That could look like nature, meditation, prayer. I feel a sense of purpose in my life. My actions are aligned with my values, and I feel connected to something bigger than myself. And these are the first four. And then before we go into the next four, I did want to mention that the SAMHSA website is on a reference slide where you can learn more about this. So you can go over the next slide.
Okay. Thank you, Joey. And then just another gentle reminder, if it feels okay right now, just to notice which of these statements feels easy, which feels challenging, what emotions or sensations arise in your body as you hear them, just to notice, not to change anything, but just to bring awareness to it. So for intellectual dimension, this is, I feel curious and open to learning new things. Ooh, there's the typo. I regularly engage in activities that challenge me intellectually. I read, listen, or explore ideas that interest me. I pursue personal growth through learning or hobbies. And occupational, I feel a sense of purpose or satisfaction in my work or daily roles. I believe my strengths are being used in meaningful ways. I maintain a healthy work-life balance. I feel supported and respected in my work environment. So just notice if you want to jot it down or just bring it to your awareness. I'm going to read environmental and then financial. So environmental, my home or workspace feels safe and comfortable. I take actions that support environmental sustainability. I minimize clutter and maintain a space that feels good. I spend time in nature or places that restore me. And financial, I understand my financial situation and budget. I feel secure in meeting my basic needs. I have plans or goals for my financial future. I can talk about money without intense stress or shame. So we can go ahead and move to the next slide. And I'll hand it back over to Joey.
Yeah, so these are some coaching questions that could be considered as helpful when working with families. I know they work for me when I worked with a coach, and one of my backgrounds is also having managed a peer-run breastfeed home here in California. And again, the strength-based lens of coaching really lends itself to support families. And these are the questions that we came up with. What areas feel strongest for you right now? And again, looking at the 8 dimensions of wellness, which areas would you most like to grow in? What support, resources, or shifts might help you improve your wellness in one of these dimensions? Of course, coaching, you can come up with your own questions. You have that relationship with the family you might be working with. Again, they're open-ended questions that support the autonomy and strengths, but not minimizing any of the barriers that families might be experiencing. Thank you. Go ahead and move on to the next slide, please. And I'll hand it over to Edie. Right.
All right, internal family systems. So often, or AKA IFS, you'll probably hear that a lot. And we just want to talk about why it could be such a powerful tool for coaching. But first, we're going to give you a little bit of background on it. So IFS was developed in the 1980s by Dr. Richard Schwartz, who is a family therapist, who discovered that people naturally carry many different inner parts, each with its own perspective and role. So not only did he realize this about his clients, but he also recognized that in himself when he started working with parts longer, and therefore believes that we all have these parts. So a helpful way to picture this is through the movie Inside Out, if folks have seen that. If not, I highly recommend it. So in the film, joy, sadness, anger, fear, and disgust all live inside one person, each with its own voice, needs, and way of protecting her. Her name was Riley. So that's very familiar to how IFS understands our inner world. We all have different parts that show up at different times to help us get through life. But what stood out most in Dr. Schwartz's work was the discovery of something deeper and what he called the self with a capital S. So unlike the parts, the self is our innate, centered presence. It's the part of us that feels calm, compassionate, and clear. Dr. Schwartz describes the self as our natural state of wholeness. And when it takes the lead, real healing and transformation become possible. This is where IFS aligns so beautifully with coaching. As coaches, we hold the belief that every client is already whole, resourceful, and capable of growth. IFS reiterates that truth. Even when clients feel overwhelmed by competing parts of themselves, there is always a core self within them that can lead with wisdom and strength. And that goes for us too. So when we integrate this perspective into coaching, we not only support clients in reaching their goals, but also help them connect with that deeper place of clarity and wholeness that's been there all along. We can go ahead and move to the next slide, please. So before I go further, I just want to be clear that this section isn't about learning how to use IFS. Instead, we're taking the richness that has been learned through the model and using it as a lens to help ourselves and the people we support. So you might be asking, how did Dr. Schwartz even come to this conclusion that everyone has parts? So let me just clarify that in case people still have a little bit more questions about that. It's a very rich history. So again, in the 80s, he was working with young women struggling with eating disorders at the time. He was trained to look at family dynamics, how parents, siblings, and relationships shaped a person's challenges. But in his sessions, something surprising kept happening. Clients would say things like, a part of me wants to stop binging, but another part of me doesn't think I can. Or there's a part of me that just hates myself. And at first, Schwartz thought this was just a way of speaking, but as he listened more closely, he realized his clients were describing something very real and inner voices, inner parts that had their own feelings, perspectives, and roles inside of them. He became curious and started asking questions like, can you tell me more about that part? How do you feel toward it? And what he discovered was pretty remarkable. When clients turned to these parts with compassion instead of judgment, the parts would relax. And they often revealed that they were actually trying to help, protecting the person from pain, even if their strategies seemed destructive on the surface. So from there, Schwartz noticed another pattern. When clients were able to step back from their parts, there was something deeper that showed up, a calm, compassionate, wise presence that wasn't a part at all. And he would ask them, like, I'm noticing this compassion coming within you. Is that another part? And they would just say, no, that's just myself. So that was just repeated. So he just called it the self, capital S again. So that's how internal family systems model was born. It sees the mind not as one unified voice, but as a system of parts, like an inner family. Some parts take on protective roles, some carry wounds, and underneath it all is the self, which has the capacity to lead with clarity, compassion, and courage. And we can go ahead and move to the next slide, please. And I'll hand it back to Joey.
Thank you so much, Edie, for that rich explanation of what IFS is and how it came about. I'm really moved when I found the IFS because that was my experience as an immigrant, as a woman, growing up I was young when I developed eating disorders and then working in the mental health field. Finding IFS meant also reinforcing the idea that people are so resourceful, even what looks like things that could be really destructive. They really had a purpose. So that's what we're going to go into soon. But before I do that, I want to tie it into wellness. So from an IFS perspective, wellness also means that it honors many parts of us with its thoughts, needs, and roles, its own thought, needs, and roles, while cultivating that self energy that Edie was talking about to support internal harmony and wholeness across all of the dimensions. And I'll briefly share a few examples later on when we talk about those parts. Thank you. We can move on to the next slide.
Okay, so
So Edie will share about protected parts. Thank you.
Thank you, Joey. So I just want to pause and remind folks again, like I'm not teaching how to do IFS. Just what we're doing here is simply drawing on some of the wisdom from the model because it gives us such a compassionate way of understanding ourselves and the people we support. So one of the most helpful ideas from IFS is the concept of protective parts. These are the parts of us that step in to try to keep us safe. Sometimes they do this by managing, making us work hard, be in control, or avoid risk. Other times they act more like firefighters, rushing in when we're overwhelmed, often through distraction or numbing behaviors. On the surface, these protective parts can look like they're causing problems. Procrastination, perfectionism, people-pleasing, anger, overworking, or shutting down. But when we look closer, we can see that they're not trying to hurt us. They actually want to help us survive and keep us from experiencing pain again. So that's one of the gifts of IFS. It reminds us that when we approach the parts of ourselves with curiosity and compassion rather than judgment, we often discover that their intentions are protective. And when these protective parts feel supported by our deeper presence, what IFS calls the self, capital S, they don't have to work so hard. They can soften, and that opens the door to greater harmony and wellness. So we can go ahead and move to the next slide, and I'll hand it to Joey.
ED. So managers are the parts that try to control the individual's environment and emotions to prevent feeling vulnerable. Again, we're not labeling and we don't label any parts as bad or negative. They simply just are. And the idea is to have conversation, to have that compassionate way of approaching and openness towards them. And here's how managers might show up as it pertains to the 8 dimensions of wellness. So in physical wellness, it might look like scheduling strict workouts or diets, pushing your body beyond limits for control. Who here has experienced work burnout? I myself am part of that. And intellectual dimension of wellness, it can overanalyze, insists on perfection, and hides behind knowledge to avoid vulnerability. In occupational wellness, that might look like overworking, micromanaging tasks, and again, keep striving, working so hard to avoid feeling like a failure. So again, those are parts that might show up that help protect us or serve a different purpose. Go ahead, Edie, for the next slide.
Okay, so examples of how firefighters can show up. So, for example, in like the emotional dimension of wellness, a firefighter can show up by distracting with substances, binge watching, or compulsive scrolling when big feelings rise. In the social dimension of wellness, it can show up by withdrawing or suddenly cutting off relationships or lashing out when triggered. In the financial dimension of wellness, it could look like it overspending impulsively, gambling, avoids looking at bills or accounts. So these are just a few ways that they could show up in life. And we can go ahead and move it to the next slide. Joey, did you want this one?
Sure, I can do that. So exiles, these parts hold painful emotions and memories, often from past trauma. They carry the tender wounds and fears that both are protecting. And then in spiritual dimensional wellness, that might look like holding disconnection, fear of being unworthy or belonging to a group or a divine love. In environmental wellness, that could look like overwhelm, helplessness, or past experiences of instability or insecurity or housing insecurity. And in financial wellness, you can maybe hold fear of scarcity, shame because of the poverty that you've experienced in the past or currently, and memories of financial insecurity as well. And then we can move on to the next slide. Thank you for letting us walk you through the parts, how our parts, protectives, and exiles can show up across the 8 dimensions of wellness. And we can see that while their strategies don't always serve us long term, they're working so hard to keep us safe and protect us from pain. But here's the beautiful part is that IFS reminds us that beneath all of our parts, we each have access to that self. And we'll be going over those 8 C's, the 8 C's of self with a capital S, of course. That's curiosity, creativity, compassion, confidence, courage, connectedness, calmness, and clarity. As we shift now, we invite you to imagine what would it feel like if for you one of these C's to guide you in each of those dimensions of wellness. For example, what might calm look like in emotional wellness? What would courage look like in occupational wellness? And these might be questions you could ask when working with families. Again, I've worked with a coach, and using these 8 C's was really helpful for me to imagine myself move through my goals without judging myself. And we'll quickly move on to the next slide. That way we make sure we have time for our demonstration of coaching. Thank you, Edie.
Thank you, Joey. So another gem that we can borrow from the internal family systems model is what are called the 5 P's of self. The 5 Ps are presence, perspective, patience, persistence, and playfulness. Presence means being grounded in the here and now, able to show up fully for ourselves and others. Perspective helps us see the bigger picture, not just the intensity of a single part of us. Patience is allowing growth to unfold at its own pace instead of pushing or rushing. Persistence is about staying committed to our well-being and goals, even when things get hard. And playfulness invites lightness, creativity, and curiosity, which keeps us open to new possibilities. So when we notice these qualities in ourselves, it's a good sign that we're connected to our self energy. You can go to the next slide. Thank you.
Thank you, Edie. So yeah, we're gonna do a live coaching demonstration with Edie in the role of the coach, and myself. I'm gonna be sharing a real life, my real life thoughts and feelings and whatever comes up. And again, this isn't about giving advice or fixing, it's about holding space for the client, and that would be me, to explore what's true for me. And we just invite you to notice what comes up for you as you're listening with curiosity and all the C's. Thank you. Whenever you're ready, Edie.
Thank you, Joey. And for time and because we have so many slides, we'll keep this to about 10 to 15 minutes. So I'm noticing right now we are at 11:40. Does that work for you, Joey? Is that okay?
Yes, yes. And again,
So,
we're Pacific time. Yeah.
yeah, and we're in Pacific time. Yes, thank you. And Joey, if we don't have a resolution, just know we can always continue this. That's completely fine at a time that works for you. And before we get started, I'm wondering if there's anything that you need just to be here right now in the space with not very many people watching you at all.
No, I really appreciate working with the National Empowerment Center and NFF for this space, and I do feel warmth and sharing my vulnerability. I know this is an audience who I was very reassured. It's such a inviting and open audience, so thank you so much. Thank you, Edie, as well. I'm doing well. I'm ready to go.
Great, great. Thank you, Joey. And I could see the warmth that your heart feels for the audience as you spoke about them. It was very sweet. So, Joey, what is alive for you right now?
Yeah. So I've been a solo parent for the longest time. And my son is turning 12 in a bit, and he just started middle school. And I've done my business of consulting for the past 3 years, too, without a 9 to 5. And this idea thought, oh, sorry, there's this thought, I'm sure the NFF will team will address that. But I'm open to stop sharing screen to be seen better. I think that would be great. I'll go ahead and continue. Thank you. Yeah, this thought of should I go back to school to support my growth in my career, which as we talk about 8 dimensions of wellness, that would support so many other parts, especially as a solo parent. And again, my son also has a disability, so managing so many things and then
Mhm.
adding another thing on top of that is really scary but exciting for me. I haven't made my hard decision on returning to school or not.
Okay. Yeah. I hear you juggling a lot of things right now as a solo parent with the 12-year-old who also has mental health needs and the 9 to 5 and the solo career and going back to school. I'm wondering what about those, like what's really pulling to you right now in this moment? Or if it's something else.
Could you explain more a little bit by what you mean by?
Yeah, so out of like being a solo parent or career or school, I'm wondering what about those do you really want to connect to right now in this 15 minutes that we have together? if it's something there or if there's something else that as you're speaking to is becoming alive for you.
I guess it's not more like one thing, but the idea of juggling all those things and coming to a decision of should I go back to school or not while holding all those things, because that really is heavy to weigh out.
Yeah. Yeah. So then what would you say you'd want to walk away from within this conversation that we're having?
More clarity around that decision.
Mhm.
And um, yeah, I feel like just the stress of it all, of knowing what that could look like or imagining what that could look like, is like there's a block for me there to
Mhm.
making that decision because I put it
Mhm.
off for a long time or not even thought about it as much as I could.
Right. And when you have that clarity of whether you're going to go back to school or not, what's that going to give you?
Have that clarity. And a decision that would help me understand schedules, right? As a solo parent, and gearing myself up for it. For instance, I'm a consultant right now with different contracts. I would know how to balance that more, not take on as many projects, maybe, or maybe, take on projects that relate to my field of study when I make that choice.
Yeah. So it sounds like it's going to really support those details as you path out instead of just kind of being in that stuck, like there's a block, there's a stuck. It sounds like you really want to get those details kind of connected for yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just to really get like a little bit deeper down, like once you have that and you understand that path and what your schedule is going to look like, I'm just curious, like what's important about that most right now for you?
I want to be present as a parent. Like I left my 9 to 5 2 years ago to be able to do that. And my son is thriving. He's doing amazing in our relationship. And as he grows into teenage years, I really want to still have access to my, most present self. We're talking about breaking, years of what I didn't receive, growing up, and being able to be that for him, offer that, take him to his dance classes, not have someone else do it while I'm in school. So there's those things that I'm afraid of. But that, yeah, I just want to be able to show up.
Yeah. And as you talk about your son, there's just such a glow around your face. The way all the things he's doing to excel. And when I hear about presence, from doing this presentation, it's like, oh, that it's almost like that self energy is really, it seems to be coming up. And I'm wondering what you're noticing.
Hmm. I do notice that in many parts of my life, in work, as a parent, it's that I have, all that feeling of I have to have it all together, to
Mm,
show up as, with this hat on, is to lead this or that. Um, Whereas with school, there's that side of me that's like, it's okay to not know yet. It's okay to be the learner, to let someone else take the wheel. That could be, the field or, fellow classmates. Of course, I'm still a part of it, but it's not reliant on just me. Um, I guess I've experienced that for so long as a solo parent.
yeah. So I'm really hearing those two parts, that parts that I have to have it all, and that part feels very rigid, right? As opposed to this part that has presence and it has more of that's curiosity. It's like I can learn, I could be a learner. So do you see anything else coming there, or how is that landing to you as I say that?
It's funny because when you said I can be a learner, it's like, of course I'm a learner in my head. And so all these fears, because my son also loves learning, he's studying calculus. at 12, almost 12, and he's amazing. And I look at that, I did raise him, and I did invite that curiosity of knowledge and learning, and I am curious. That's why I want to continue, and I have done that in different ways, maybe not a traditional setting. So that fear around that, I'm not sure whether it's fear or just plain newness
Mhm.
has yet to be explored. So that's kind of unblocking some of that fear into why does that fear exist?
Okay. So would you say that does the fear part, is it similar to I have to have it all, or is that like a totally different part coming up?
Um, I guess it's more of I am already assuming the outcome that I won't be as present while I'm going to school.
Mhm.
Um, where as if I look back at my history of having raised him on my own, um, I have been a manager in the nonprofit world and raised him. I have been able to start my own business and do it well while raising him. So I guess that, yeah, adding school to it, I guess it's just something so different from what I've done.
Yeah, and I really just and I know this because I saw you when you started your consulting business come to a workshop and bring your son, and like, he was amazing, and everybody there was just so in awe of the way he participated. And I'm just like, that kid's got an amazing mama. So I can definitely attest to, yes, you've been doing this, and you have been very present and intentional. How does that land when you hear yourself say that? Not what I
Um,
just said, but what you said.
Thank you. That means a lot, Edie. Yeah, I, I think I think that he has watched me, and I forget that sometimes. And this could be another, he's watching me um, do something that is scary and new and could potentially, help me grow in different ways. Yeah, I do. I guess that him watching me, I guess I would just assume he's watching me be busier versus he's watching me. So I'm almost assuming the lens that he's going to see it as. So that was my main concern, I think. Like mom's more busy versus, yeah, me doing something that really can benefit both of us as well. Yeah.
What are you learning about yourself right now, Joey?
Um, that I forget my strengths and I forget how insightful my son is in watching me struggle and succeed. Um, and yeah, we are our own people. And part of that also means honoring myself and what I want as a whole person, including my pursuit of higher education.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Honoring yourself in pursuit of higher education. Yeah. So where do we go from here, Joey?
Well, Edie, I did have this idea of taking myself out on like a picnic. Just, I've gone to universities to speak. Maybe I could just sit there for myself, and just have lunch and just soak in that energy. And I don't have to make a decision today or tomorrow. But the idea of exploring it in a way that's not assuming the outcome, I think could be really good for me.
Yeah. No, I love that. I love the wisdom that's coming out in your body. It's like I just want to go and be around that energy. Like my next steps is just to kind of embody it by showing up.
Mhm, mhm, mhm.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Is there anything else that you would want to add to that as some next steps?
Um, I think I've done it in my field of work, I've gone with prospective students and connected them with a disabled resource centers for their student services. But I have never actually done it for myself. And so maybe I could explore what accommodations could look like as well while I'm there.
Yay, so accommodations, yeah, yeah. And I'm just curious because I feel like this is very alive for you right now, and I'm wondering if there's anything else you'd want to add to like showing up, checking out the accommodations. What else would feel really good for you as just giving yourself an opportunity to explore?
I think I will write that note to myself that um, I don't have to expect the outcome, and that's it. And I think we that's landing really well for me, and we can end there. Thank you so much, Edie.
Yeah, yeah, thank you, Joey. Does this feel like complete for you? Is there anything else that you want to share? I
No,
invite you to close us however you'd like.
no, and as I continue to walk this path towards this path, whether decision making, I could always connect with a coach or a friend or a therapist to continue to explore that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Joey. And just to show a little bit of accountability piece, just because it is part of a coach's role. Joey, how will I know that you've done them?
Well, I could maybe take a picture of my lunch picnic and send it to you afterwards.
Wonderful. Okay, and when will you do this by?
Um, I end one of my projects towards the end of September. So I think October, a nice fall weather, fall picnic. Be
Oh,
really
that
good.
sounds lovely. Okay. Well, thank you, Joey, so much for being vulnerable in this space and for trusting me to coach you. And if this feels like a good place to complete, okay, then we can bring it on back to the presentation. All right, so if we want to go ahead and go to the next slide. And thank you again, Joey. Let's see, so I will go ahead and hand this slide to Joey. Unless you want me to take it, Joey, totally up to you because you just demonstrated a coaching play.
It's okay. This is just for anyone who would like this. We created this IM sheet for a workshop we worked on together, and it's just an exercise to connect to yourself and your own self energy. The purpose of this exercise is to help you notice different parts of yourself, your vulnerable parts, protective parts, playful parts, and also connect to your inner self, the capital S. And so you can take this with you. Yeah. Um, and I'll go ahead and move on to the next slide. And I know we wanted to reserve some time for reflections and questions. And here's how you can stay connected with us. Okay. And I think we can go ahead and move it forward for reflections and questions.
Okay, thank you. That was such a great presentation, guys, and just doing that coaching session live for us. That was a really great session. And I see there are some comments in the chats about how great it was and they liked it. So guys, we're going to open it up for some questions right now. Does anyone have any questions? Feel free to put it in the chat. Questions about the coaching process or about internal family systems. And everybody, I do see the question about their contact information. We will send all their information out after it's over. But any questions for the presentation, for the presenters, I'm sorry. Very helpful example. Okay. I think I see a question here. Do you know of agencies, et cetera, that use coaching and their programs with families, in programs with families?
I do not. Joey, do you?
So as a family member who has a son with an individualized education program or IEP, I actually came up with this webinar idea of or this idea of coaching for families because there wasn't any. And I was like, I need coaching, especially when those big feelings came up. So no, I do not, but I do think that organizations, nonprofit, grassroots can support by hiring local coaches, especially local coaches with lived experience of that particular, whether it's disabilities or mental health. Yeah, but no, I don't.
Okay, we have Kevin. Kevin Phillips has his hand up. Kevin, feel free to ask your question.
Thanks. So it doesn't seem, and I don't know if it's a matter of terminology, that unlike how we practice family support and peer support here in Arizona, but or at least what we teach. But I am one of the things. So I train both family and peer support classes here, and one of the things that the big difference is when I'm training them is using tools like motivational interviewing and stuff, and the wellness wheel with an individual versus when you're sitting in a room with like multiple family members. So what does coaching for families look like in a scenario like this, if you have a moment to talk about it, when you're with a couple of family members, like a pair of parents or siblings or a parent and a sibling or something like that? So,
I couldn't speak to coaching with families. What I can speak to is that that framework of working with the families is what Dr. Schwartz used to create and develop the system. So he started noticing, so when he was doing these group families, he would notice that when, his client was speaking up and then would shut down, it was because another family member was getting disruptive. And so he would ask that family member just to step out into the hall. And when that happened, the client could resume. So he put those pieces together when he started recognizing that it's almost like these same parts of like the family were inside. So when a part or like a family member started speaking up, he would ask, can we just have that part step back and just see what it says? And if the part allowed it, the client could come back into some more of that self energy. It could get that space. So he would often just say, yeah, if they can just go ahead and put him back in the back room, just like he did with the families he worked with. And it just seemed to work. So thank you for asking that question. I hope that's helpful, even though it doesn't directly answer your question.
thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay, we
Little
have
bit more
another
to-
question. Oh,
Oh, so just
Oh.
really briefly, when I did manage a peer-run respite home, I do appreciate motivational interviewing as well. Having a person with lived experience utilizing the services and then their family coming in. What was beneficial was introducing the family members to the recovery model. Again, similar to coaching supports autonomy, because without having some sort of background of what we're trying to do. So I do think that some knowledge base would be important for a family member because as any ally of any group, you want to hear what's important to other people that's being impacted. Thank you.
thank you.
Yeah.
Definitely. And lived experience always is very helpful when interacting with families and individuals. Question, how long does a typical session last? And is there a time limit you like to plan around to remain focused and present?
I think I'll need an explanation on that second part of the question. But a typical session, oftentimes 60 minutes, but it's really up to that coach. And I've heard of coaches working with their coachees for up to 4 hours.
Mm.
So really, what is working for in that relationship? And then, could I get a little bit of clarification on that second part of the question?
And whoever poses the question, Lorena,
Yes. So you kind of answered it. So it was just more around, how long is too long if you're not getting, making like headway on coming to a resolution? Like, is there a point where, you kind of say, like you did with Joey, it's okay, we don't come to a resolution, like we can pick this up another time. So is there, where does that start to feel like, okay, this is a good time to stop? And then we'll pick it up at another time. You know what I mean? So
Right.
people stay focused and not start to feel drained, especially
Correct.
making any progress.
Right, right. So if for me, I personally like 60 minutes and 90 minutes, I like that too. And so as being trained by a coach, being trained in coaching, we do have to unlearn a lot of things. And one of those things is, again, we're trusting in the wisdom of the client, and it's gonna be client led. So we're gonna move at that pace. So a coach doesn't have to do anything, right? Because there's this expectation, like I have to make this, have to give these answers. I have to make sure that they have their thing. Well, if they don't, that's okay, because remember, we have those 5 Ps, that patience, as long as we're present and we're holding that space. And then, and if there seems to be like a client is just stuck and you've been working with the client and it looks like there could be for mental health issues, that's something that a coach wouldn't be trained to support. So in that reference, we would just want to add on to the team. We'd offer a referral and add for that extra team support, because we couldn't, it just would completely be out of our scope of work. Does that answer your question?
and Edie and Joey, it sounds like it almost takes the responsibility off of you, because it really is drawing from the individual themselves in terms of to come up with the answer. And so it sounds like the coach's role is more to be, like you were saying, curious and remember those principles that you went over with us, so that we don't feel that we have to push the session in a certain direction. So that is definitely was a great answer and response. Thank you. Someone else asked, Katie asked, do you feel like it takes, excuse me, a strong rapport before coaching is effective?
Yeah, I know, like I've heard therapists say that the real beauty of therapy is not the modalities, but it's the relationships. And I think it's the same for coaching. Yes, absolutely.
Okay. I'm kind of going through the chat looking for questions. If anyone wants to raise their hand and ask another question of Joey or Edie, feel free to do that. And just a reminder to everyone, all the information, the slides, you guys will get those sent to you in a recording of this presentation. Okay. Okay, so Tony asks, does coaching families or individuals underpin or undo other forms of therapy, counseling, interventions, etc., that the individual or family may be undertaking at the same time?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think when you go and get trained to be like a professional coach, there's so many strict, like what we're doing is really creating that sacred space, and we're letting it be client led. So, and I think where people get confused, oftentimes where I was very confused, is I thought people hired a coach and it was more like a consultant, like they're going to tell you, you know, like an expert over model and tell you what you should do to fix things. I could see how that could conflict. But if you're going to go to at least an accredited coach, we're very strictly trained in a certain way that it really shouldn't. But of course, if their therapist says that it's interfering, then, you know, you don't want to overstep ever. We can work together, but if it's not actually supportive to the clients, then we take a step back.
I'd like to add on to that too, as a person who's done both at the same time. And as a person who's, yeah, I just, currently also, I have a coach and a therapist right now. I think, I think we often can forget, that person can come up with that, answer too. Like, hey, this is kind of conflicting. I do have a therapist, an amazing person who's very affirming of neurodiversity, has so much cultural awareness and empathy, and they operate similarly with my coach. And at the same time, with therapy, I can talk about my past traumas when things come up, and that's my main focus there. And even celebrating wins, but with the coach, it's really goal specific for me. So I might be working with a coach to improve my business and improve, you know, again, with Edie, you saw me working with her, focusing on my decision. So I don't think it would be either the coach or this is my personal opinion, that it's not the coach or the therapist to decide that. It would again be that person, because they do have their own autonomy and they're resourceful and they will know.
Okay. Is there a time limit? Question was how many weeks or months should you work with families or individuals?
For as a coach. Okay, so I know a lot of coaches are doing like 3 months. Some are longer. 3 months is usually about what coaches like to work with, just to get a good feel for it. Starts building that trust. There's time to build that rapport and to go a little bit deeper, because sometimes, you know, we'll bring things and then when we start doing the work, we'll realize, oh, there's actually a lot more underneath that. So I personally worked with my coach for a year and it was very beneficial for me. So that's my answer.
That's great. Someone had a question about getting stuck while coaching. Does that sometimes occur in the coaching process, that the coach gets stuck?
So
And-
the beautiful thing about IFS is they believe that that opens the door. So that's where it can bring up a lot of richness. And I can't remember the exact phrase, but yeah, like what's in the way is the way. That's what they would say.
Yeah.
So, so again, there's a lot of unlearning you do when you go to coaching school, and a lot of it trauma informed, really, really beautiful modalities that they give us. And just using the IFS model, because ICF coaching is about your person in front of you is whole and resourceful, but going through the coaching program and doing our own work, especially using internal family systems as a model, really helps us go deeper in getting into our self energy. So the more we get into that energy, there's more of a flow, which is
Yes.
kind of one of the reasons why I left nonprofit, because there was just so many places to get stuck a lot in nonprofit, because you're going and going and going and going. And I felt like this is a profession, like not only do I get to help my clients, but I also get to support my own well-being. Because
And I love that, because it sounds like it's learning on both parts. Learning on both parts
transformational
is-
on both parts. You called it,
Absolutely.
Michelle. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, we have Terry. Terry, I see you have your hand up. If you feel comfortable, turn on your camera
Yes.
and ask your question.
Um, Edie, I I don't know if this was part of intentional or not, but what I really, first of all, it was really great that I really could see how you stuck with her leading the meeting, and that's how it should be. And I almost kind of saw a little bit that you almost were doing a SMART goal. I don't know if that was intentional or not. Um, but it was, you were like, okay, so when do you think you'll do that? And, you know, um, and I think it kind of cut out. I think you kind of asked like, oh, how would you let me know? If you could reiterate what you did say there, because it kind of cut out for me. But this is really great. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. So what you were seeing is that accountability piece that we learn as coaches that I didn't talk about in the webinar, but people come to coaches to be held accountable to reach their goals. So, and again, want to do it in a way where I'm not telling them what to do. They're figuring out what's going to work for them because I have no idea what will work for them. And Joy was
Right.
able to say, well, this will work for me and by this time. And, and she can answer that question any way she wants. Well, how will I know? And there could have been anything. It's coming from her. So we really want to
Okay.
just make it work for the clients and not be that person who you have to do it by this time or any of that. So thank you for noticing that.
Thank you.
Okay, Amber, I see you have your hand up.
Yeah, thank you. Great presentation. I'm afraid I missed it somewhere, but I'm curious. Are you like private party contact, private party pay? Do you tend to go through insurance? Do you tend to be like through programs or state departments and referrals? Like how do you get yourself out there and find the population that you work with?
Yeah, great question. Because like I said, I was in a nonprofit for a decade, and I'm just a brand new baby coach with my accreditation just earlier this year. So I am just starting on my road of getting myself out there. I've been personally relying on my network, I'm just learning and growing from there. So hopefully that answers your question.
I'm just going to follow up real quick. Like, I'm
Oh.
curious if you guys co-align yourself with government organizations so that you're getting to the people who need it, or is it more of a private practice, personal industry type of career?
It is private practice. So coaching isn't, what is the word? It is not regulated. So anyone can essentially call themselves a coach, which is why it's very confusing. Like sometimes people will ask me, well, what kind of coach is it? You're a swim coach? Like, okay, so I have to break down what like professional coaching looks like because it's not giving advice, and that throws people off because they're used to kind of the consultant. So in that aspect, it's not regulated. And I do know of people getting like private contracts with government or city work. And Joey and because Joey also comes from nonprofit background, we were just very excited about this work because it's impacted us both profoundly. So we've just been creating workshops and putting it out to the community because we will always be in service to our community. So does that answer it a little bit better?
Yeah, it does. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Okay, I have someone who said that they were, Joy says, she was advised that a person benefits best when with a therapist and a life coach. And what are your thoughts about that?
It's a great team. Absolutely. And again, it's very supportive because the therapist is going to go back into the past and heal those wounds from back then. And a coach is going to really meet them where they're at today and move them forward. So yeah, I think that's a beautiful team.
Yeah, I agree. Definitely. Again, but it would be up to that person. They could do like community mapping, like the first iteration of this workshop or this webinar. I worked with fellow consultant Juan Velez Court, and we did like a community needs mapping, community assets mapping, and that person can write, life coach and therapist. It could be on there, or it could not be. Maybe peer respite could be there, peer supporters, regional centers. Everyone can benefit from so many different things. What we shared today was a little bit of a menu, right, that they can pick from with the 8 dimensions of wellness. Because sometimes people really, especially when we're overwhelmed, we don't know where to begin. And again, our goal was just to help somebody be curious, get some clarity and confidence and all the 8 C's. Yeah.
I love that, being curious about individuals and families when we're looking to assist them in their process, or when they come up with their plan for their life. So last thing that we're going to ask, if no one else has questions, you can raise your hand if you have more questions. But the last thing that I was going to ask, if someone wanted to become a coach, what would that process look like? How long does it take? And like, what direction could you give individuals?
So there's numerous schools. The school I went to was called Leadership That Works India. It had moved into India right after 2020. And I chose that school because it had indigenous wisdom embedded into the curriculum. And we talked a lot about diversity and understanding people's different histories and bringing that as a coach. I feel like it is our responsibility to learn this, right? So that was a 10-month program. I've seen programs that are a month and programs that are over about, a year and a half. So it really depends on how much resources you have. I would really recommend doing an ICF accredited school if you knew that you wanted to get ICF accredited, because that school will give you the mentoring hours that you need. So you could do it all in one place. But yeah, I would, if you wanted to do professional coaching like this, I would just choose an ICF accredited school.
Thank you. And Joey, did you want to add anything to that?
Yes, not exactly to that, but just wanted to really thank the audience for engaging so much and being here, and Edie for being such an amazing friend and colleague, NFF for having us, and NET supporting us as consultant and presenter, co-presenter, to have this today. And, with any profession out there, I think our main message is to examine, to be curious, again, those questions, whether you're a peer supporter, therapist, coach, or whatever you're pursuing. I think it was Kevin in the chat who asked about oversight, having worked in nonprofits. We check ourselves first. We check in, right? Am I practicing the values, and am I in alignment with the ethical values of, whatever I'm doing? And it's just a daily thing. It's a constant thing, no matter if you're accredited or pursuing something. That's so important, because without that, we could all fall into, our managers, our exiles, and other things like that, that could just really create even more barriers to creating that relationship with whoever we're supporting, and then that being in that role as well. Because we have so much to offer, as well as people supporting others. And thank you again for having us.
And thank you, ladies, for a great presentation. I think, across the board, learning to hold space for each other in this world is a great thing. But guys, a couple of things before we leave. What we want to do is have you guys take a survey for us, just to give us feedback on how well the webinar went and what we could do to improve. We have a QR code up right here or you can follow the link. I'm sure our ladies are putting, Gina and Dana are putting the link in the chat for you to take this survey. After you complete the survey, they will redirect you to another link where you have to download it and you can get your certificate of completion.